Lesson 0. Getting started. Using the lessons. How should Drawabox be used? At its simplest level, read Drawabox from Lesson 0, which you're doing right now. The lessons are by their very nature quite dense, so expect yourself to have to reread sections now and again, as it's easy to forget things. Most lessons will have a homework section where a specific number of pages of listed exercises are assigned. Each exercise lifted will link off to its own page, explaining exactly what that exercise entails. Do the exercises, make a point of reading the instructions for that exercise immediately before doing the work. If your work gets split up across days, rereading it again for each session is a good idea. Limiting yourself only to the number of pages that you are assigned. Yes, I know you will not likely feel satisfied with your results on this first ever attempt at the exercises. You'll feel inclined to try them again. Don't. The focus here is not on impressing someone. Not me, not the community, not even for yourself. There is no expectation that you will be able to do these exercises perfectly. And some of them are specifically designed to be an introduction to a concept where you will fall flat on your face. Accept this now, and it will save you a lot of grief in the future. Your only focus should be on following the instructions, as they are written, to the best of your current ability. The purpose and goal of every exercise is presented in those instructions, so take them to heart. The goal of a given exercise may not be what you assume, so read and follow those instructions carefully and avoid taking liberties with them. Once you're done with the assigned work from a given homework section, continue on with the lesson reading. When you're done with the entire lesson, submit your homework to be reviewed by the community. If a lesson has any homework assigned, towards the top of every lesson page, you'll see a button labelled Submit Homework for Review. This will require you to be logged into the Drawabox website. Here you can share your homework with other members of the community for free, or even have your work critiqued by me and my teaching assistants. Keep in mind, when doing the exercises, your focus should be on creating a body of work that represents what you're capable of currently without rushing, and what you understand of the instructions. This will help others give you feedback, suggestions, and actionable next steps. If you appear to understand the goal of each exercise, even if there are issues, you'll be asked to move on to the next lesson. If there are some misunderstandings present, then you may be asked to redo specific exercises. There is no specific amount of time you are expected to take in order to complete any exercise. There are no deadlines, and at least for these courses, you should not be setting any for yourself. Instead of thinking about whether you are going too slowly, focus only on completing the work to the best of your current ability. If investing more time to think through what you're doing will yield better results, do that. On the subject of grinding and warm-ups. Many students I've encountered over the last several years have admitted to grinding the exercises. That essentially means focusing on one exercise until they can do it perfectly, and no other limits than perfection, and then moving on to the next. This is a massive waste of time. There are several reasons why this is a waste of time. Number 1, learning occurs both in the time spent doing the exercise, as well as the time in between as your brain processes what you've learned. It also occurs when doing other related tasks, as your brain is exposed to the same problem from many different angles. Number 2, many of these exercises are straightforward to pick up initially, but very difficult to perfect. I don't expect students to be able to necessarily do the first exercise of lesson 1 perfectly by the time they've reached the end of lesson 7. Number 3, in the time that you spend perfecting an exercise, others will have moved on, completed the lesson, and ultimately made far more progress, developing their general understanding of many more concepts while you focus on nailing down one. Good enough is good enough to allow you to be able to understand and apply the concepts in the next step. Now, this does not mean that we complete the assigned pages for an exercise and then forget about it entirely. Instead, we take all of the exercises we've learned thus far and incorporate them into a pool, from which we draw 2 or 3 exercises at the beginning of each session to do for 10 to 15 minutes. This does not mean doing them to completion, or to any particular page count. just to work on them for a set period of time before moving on to the main focus of that section. You will likely find that some parts of Drawabox do appear to be somewhat grindy. For example, after lesson 1, we tackled the 250 box challenge. This challenge has a specific limit to it, the completion of 250 boxes, but it certainly is a repetitive task that can be fairly time consuming. So there are some points where some grinding is deemed beneficial, but I have determined this based on studying how this exercise has impacted over 1,000 students. On the next page, we'll look at the tools we'll be using for these lessons.